Surprising, I guess. That's kind of very big news and a big name to get wrapped.
Bull crap.
I'm a little shocked about that.
Yeah, I don't have a comment.
No comment, no.
It's all hearsay.
That is how many of you are reacting today to the news that New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft charged with soliciting prostitution. Good evening, everybody. I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Lindsay Mills. Kraft is facing 2 charges as part of a human trafficking bust in Florida. Police say Kraft is facing misdemeanor charges on 2 counts. However, he has not been charged with human trafficking and he has not been arrested. A warrant will be issued and his attorneys will be notified. He's one of at least 25 others facing charges. Now, earlier today during a news conference, police in Jupiter, Florida confirmed there is video evidence of the alleged acts.
Much of our evidence comes directly from the businesses, also from body-worn cameras of our officers, and also surveillance that we had been conducting over the last several months.
Now, a spokesman for Kraft has released the following statement, which reads, quote, "We categorically deny that Mr. Kraft engaged in any illegal activity. Because it is a judicial matter, we will not be commenting further," end quote. Robert Kraft is not a Florida resident, but he does own property in Palm Beach. Now, lots of social media comments, as you would imagine, coming in on this story. Bonnie chimes in, "I don't believe this. Patriot haters are at it again." Kevin says if he knew it was a human trafficking ring, that's not okay. "I do, however, stand firm that legalized prostitution helps avoid human trafficking and the spread of disease."
Brent adding, "Some of these Patriot fan comments make me embarrassed to be a Patriots fan." And Wendy posting another reason to not like football. What does the problem look like in Maine? Chris Costa spoke with an expert who helps trafficking survivors.
Hi, Lee and Lindsay. The Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault says it is difficult to determine how widespread sex trafficking is in Maine, but the agency's sex trafficking and exploitation network does have some statistics. Between 2007 and December of 2018, the National Human Trafficking Resource Center hotline has received more than 440 calls from Maine and identified at least 55 cases where trafficking likely happened. In Maine, the center estimates that there are roughly 200 to 300 sex trafficking cases each year. Nearly 40% of law enforcement officers have seen a trafficking case in the last year. 71% of law enforcement officers were not familiar with any organizations in Maine addressing human trafficking. We spoke to one of Maine's trafficking coordinators with the Coalition Against Sexual Assault, who explained the difference between sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. Trafficking is a legal definition. It involves force, fraud, or coercion by another person who is benefiting from the person being sold for sex. She estimates that the cases in Maine and likely nationwide are underreported.
So we know that lots of people are engaged in commercial sex that doesn't happen by force, fraud, or coercion, that doesn't meet this definition of trafficking, but that is exploitive and harmful to the people who are engaging in it. And we know that exploitation is, although not as talked about because it's not this definition, really common. So sex exploitation could be someone who is, because of their circumstances, because of their economic situation, they don't have a choice but to exchange sex for basic needs like shelter, food, substances that they might be dependent upon, resources to take care of their children.
Is the John aware that the person they're engaging with is either being exploited, trafficked, or neither?
People who are buying commercial sex, often referred to as Johns, might know that the person who they're buying sex from has been trafficked or exploited, or they might not. And so a lot of the education that we do around trafficking and exploitation is about talking about when you engage or encounter someone who is exchanging sex, you don't know their full story. You don't know their history, you don't know their life, and so we can't make assumptions about why that person is where they are or what they're doing, and we should just treat everyone with respect and let them share their own stories with us.
When you were working with survivors in your previous position, what was that like for you to hear their stories of what they've been through?
I think hearing about anyone's victimization is really hard. It's really impossible to know what it was really like to live someone else's life. And supporting them is a great opportunity to help someone build their life and heal. And folks who get to work in those fields are lucky to get to be a part of that journey.
That is Jess Bedard with the Maine Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Maine passed a law in 2010 that all law enforcement officers must be trained to identify sex trafficking. That's training that was updated in 2016. Lee and Lindsay.
All right, Chris Costa, thank you very much, sir.
In Maine, the most recent case of sex trafficking involves a couple accused of luring Chinese women to Maine. Sao Chow Lee and Durong Mayo are accused of renting homes and hotel rooms in Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire to prostitute women, including 2 homes in Portland and several hotel rooms at locations in Portland, South Portland, and Scarborough. The couple face up to life in prison if convicted. This case is still under investigation by several local, state, and federal agencies.
And for the latest on the case involving New England Patriot owner Robert Kraft, stay tuned to News Center Maine at 5:30, 6 o'clock. We'll also have the latest information on our website as well as our mobile app. Certainly that is the story of the day. The story of the weekend, at least maybe the second half of the weekend, could be the weather that is coming, and therefore we bring in Keith Carson.
Yeah, it's I got a storm coming on Sunday. Decent.
Right.
Decent. That's it. And I'm out. That's it. Yeah, nice day today. 41 in Portland, 36 in Bangor. Beautiful day to be outside. 39 in Freiburg. A lot of sunshine. And the satellite's still pretty clean. Just a few clouds into the mountains here, into the mid-30s along the coastline. A couple of clouds into New Hampshire. But overnight tonight is partly cloudy to mostly clear, and most of tomorrow looks good as well. Our storm system's starting to come together with a low here and an area of moisture down across the mid-south. But you can see we've got a kind of a day's width away from that storm, and that's why tomorrow looks good. It's not really until Sunday morning, that our storm moves in. So hour by hour forecast tonight, temperatures drop into the teens, and then on Saturday we basically end up with a lot of sunshine through the day, temperatures in the upper 30s. Here we're at 10 o'clock at night on Saturday. You start to see some clouds moving in quickly from southwest to northeast, and then here comes our snow. It'll likely be around 8 or 9 over western Maine, and then moving into the mid-coast through the mid-morning hours. Now there'll be a precip type issue here, as has been almost every storm we've had so far this season. And so we start as snow, but by the middle of the day, we start pushing that rain-snow boundary onshore, and the rain gets squarely into the coastline with some sleet farther inland. So guys, this is going to be a wet, heavy storm for the coast. Looks like a good amount, though, for the mountains. We'll talk totals in a few minutes.
All right, Keith, thanks so much. Still ahead, we're talking strategy for a college grad's first job interview.
And 5 decades later, one of the greatest shots in the history of the high school basketball tournament still lives on. We'll take a walk down memory lane.
All right, everybody. I know that there's a joke in all of this somewhere, but please, our Facebook comments is no place for those jokes.
Here's my take, because I know you asked. The problem, there's a lot of problems. First and foremost, what Mr. Kraft is accused of doing is illegal.
It's a very serious
so you can't
issue.
do it.
Yes.
Then there's the overall issue of sex trafficking, which is not necessarily what he's being accused of. It's very possible he is a wrong place at the wrong time, walked into a sting that he had no idea was happening, and was, not that it makes it any better, but the simple act of prostitution versus sex trafficking, which are 2 totally different things. In some cases, one of them is there's a willing participant, even though it's illegal, and the other side, it's not, it's forced, and and you can't do it. Then there's the fact of that Robert Kraft is famous and has built his legacy and the franchise's legacy on the Patriot way. And doing the right things and making the right choices and holding yourself to a higher standard on and off the field.
Setting good leadership.
And being accountable and all of the different things that people buy into with the Patriot way. So that's why this is a bigger deal maybe for Robert Kraft versus the owner of maybe another team where it's not what he's built his entire history and legacy on. So it's extremely now can be looked at very hypocritically of here's the leader of the Patriot way and how you're supposed to do things, who's caught up in something as salacious and illegal as this. So it's a major problem. It's a problem.
And when it comes to the rankings of an NFL team, the owner, that's like the top below the commissioner of the NFL, right?
Sure.
So he's like second from the top, so to speak. I know there's owners of every team, but when you're at that level, I mean, you have even greater responsibility to set that example.
Well, and I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but the NFL has historically had a major problem with sex trafficking because of the Super Bowl, which is well documented as one of the most, if not the biggest sex trafficking weeks across the world. And it's a major problem. So the Super Bowl is already attached and has that negative connection to it. So it's not good. There's nothing good about it. So
do you need some white?
It's a big deal, not a big deal, whatever, but it's not a good look at all for Mr. Kraft or the organization.
Stand by.
You want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
This is a lovely job interview outfit. If you happen to be interviewing for jobs, you could wear that.
The funny thing is, and I didn't do this on purpose, this is the dress actually I wore for the interview here. Crazy, right?
And we hired you.
And it turns out,
see,
dressing can be a good strategy for a college grad's first job interview.
Finding the right outfit to go out is hard enough, but finding the right interview outfit can feel impossible. Well, what if I told you it doesn't have to be? There comes a time to ditch the sweats and dress to impress.
Interviewing skills, subpar.
And for us seniors, that time is right now. This week we'll talk about finding the right attire while also sticking to your budget. And trust me, it can be done. I went to stores like Marshall's and found some pretty great deals on designer items. From shoes to ties to blouses, they have everything. If you don't have time to swing by a store, websites like Poshmark, Designer Shoe Warehouse, or Rent the Runway have great deals on quality clothing. You can dress up any outfit with a nice pair of shoes or a statement tie. And guys, if you don't know how to tie a tie or fold a pocket square, check out YouTube. Websites like Pinterest are great for inspiring new outfits or piecing together clothes that you already have. But when in doubt, call your parents or an old boss you can trust. Chances are they've been in your shoes. So grab your Padfolio, print your resume, it's time to get a job. I'm Madison Rayner, and I'll see you next week with some tips and tricks on how to crush the interview.
Now, this is fun to watch the process, so hopefully we'll get to the end there in May when Maddie graduates, and then Maddie the intern becomes Maddie the employee. And,
lots of pressure on poor Maddie.
That's good stuff. All right, coming up, we will take another look at one of the greatest finishes during the history of the Maine high school basketball tournament.
And will tonight be one of Kate's best forecasts of all time? Find out next.
Piece of the book. I'm out of here.
He gone.
Yes.
Riley. Deborah says, how embarrassing for the team. Harold makes the comment, something police mentioned earlier today during the news conference, that he was there on 2 different occasions. That is something police said earlier today. Ronald says, why am I not surprised? A lot of people ready to celebrate Margarita Day on another note. AJ says, shows money can't buy common sense. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, I was surprised actually out and about today trying to get some reaction from people out and about Portland, especially with high school tournament going on. I thought a lot of people would be out and about, and they were, but a lot of people either didn't want to talk about this at all, they hadn't heard about it, or they didn't know who Robert Kraft is. So it was actually kind of challenging to hear what people had to say about it. Keith, Becky wants to know how much snow Sunday in Athens, Maine. Stand by, Becky.
I want to make sure this matches our map.
Okay.
Yeah, at least we can go maybe 5 to 10.
5 to what?
5 to 10.
5 to 10 inches, Becky. Carl says, let the facts come out like all stories. We will continue to keep a close eye on what happens.
Die? Sometimes it does that. It's like a bad connection.
I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised some of the people are wholeheartedly defending here.
Nathan's wondering who Robert Kraft is. Robert Kraft is the owner of the New England Patriots. And yes.
She said the camera died.
Oh, she gone.
Thanks, Cam.
Okay, sorry, Milsey, I got nothing for you here.
You're good. I'll just look on with eyes of support. Looks of support.
It was 50 years ago, 1969. This game involves a Basketball Hall of Famer, one of the greatest shots in the history of the sport, a United States Senator, and a game between Westbrook and Caribou that was tied with 10 seconds to play.
10 seconds to go, score tied. Back comes Douglas. Douglas goes to the foul line. He shoots. It is no good. Rebound. Caribou goes to Thurston. Thurston with 2 seconds will shoot the midcourt. If that's good, it's good. It's good. Caribou wins it. And this was the most fantastic basketball game that I have ever seen in 20 years of basketball.
What a great shot.
31 years later, Mike Thurston is still shooting hoops as a phys ed teacher in the Old Town school system. People approach him all the time to talk about his amazing shot, which gave Caribou its first and only state title in boys basketball.
I don't think it surprised me, Lee, because the people of Maine are such basketball fans. They don't let good basketball kinds of things die. And I've been visible for a lot of years refereeing basketball right here. So I'm not surprised that the shot has lived on.
50 years from now, they'll be marking the point on the floor that Mike Thurston shot that shot.
Right, that's a great shot.
But it's not as great a memory in Westbrook. Matt Donahue averaged around 30 points a game for the Blue Blazers in 1969. He spends his days now making art instead of jump shots, but he still recalls his emotions from that day.
You can, you're a little sad about it, but geez, you ought to be a little happy for the guy, right? And plus, after all these years, I mean, everything you read about, how much that meant to everybody up there. I think that was pretty cool.
It makes me want to get out of the seat even now. It was unbelievable.
Maine Senator Susan Collins was a sophomore at Caribou and never missed a game, home or away. She was one of the hundreds of people that mobbed the floor after the game-winning shot, because for Caribou, it was more than just winning a game.
So when Caribou won the state championship that year, I can't tell you what a boost it was to the community. And it really was something that gave a real boost to morale. It was something that was such a source of community pride. Not only that year, it's still a source of pride in Caribou.
As it turns out, what some people called a lucky shot maybe wasn't so lucky after all. Just 2 days before the state title game, Thurston hit an even longer shot in a scrimmage against Presque Isle. After hearing about that, I had to see it for myself, so Mike and I recreated the magic moment, and guess what happened? Westbrook's got the ball, they take their last shot, they finish, Peter gets the rebound.
I clap for the basketball, knowing there's not much time left, take 3 or 4 dribbles, and shoot it. Woo! Did you get it? 31 years from now, I'll try it one more time just for you. Oh, that's great.
I did that story 19 years ago. Caribou still hasn't won a state championship since that 1969 game. They are still alive. They're currently alive in the tournament. They're playing in a regional championship game, so it could happen now. But when Mike Thurston, I made him take that shot just to see what would happen. On the very first try, he hit the back of the rim, and that went in on the third take. I mean,
Wow.
and he made, I said, this is unbelievable. So
That was unbelievable.
I'm going to try to circle back with him maybe another 10 years
You
or so.
should.
We'll try that again. I'll be wheeling both of us out there.
That's like the best thing we've run in a long time.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So.
But we talked about how your voice sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, that was a lot of kids ago. Yeah. I don't look the same.
Funny.
I had hair.
Funny. Do you think the kids are responsible?
I think I probably had more money at that point. I just didn't have any children.
You're going in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
Let's have a look outside. Nice today. 41 in Portland, 38 in Rockland, and 39 in Wiscasset. So pretty mild, a lot of sunshine. The sun angle this time of year is starting to become more and more effectual. A couple clouds in the mountains. The rest of us are clear. Temperature still in the 30s, so a pretty pleasant night out there. Our next storm system is here, and then there's another low that you kind of can't see that's developing within that area of moisture. And like every storm so far this season, it's going to be an inside runner. It's going to come from the west and southwest, and as a result of that, it's going to bring into play some warmer air. Hour by hour forecast showing you temperatures dropping tonight, but it's not a brutally cold night. And tomorrow is a bright day, a lot of sunshine, temperatures back into the mid and upper 30s, so all very similar to what you saw today. Get outside and enjoy it. It's going to be great. And it's not until Saturday night that clouds start to increase, and then here comes our storm system. Let's switch over to the European model because I think it's doing a better job with this storm. We talked in depth yesterday about where that rain snow line is going to be, being the key to this storm. And it's just trended warmer and warmer and warmer. So along the coastline, your snowfall totals will be less as a result of that. Storm moving in around 8, 9 o'clock. It's snow at first, but changes quickly to sleet and rain, especially over our southern coast. And even into Rockland, I think by the middle of the day, we have changed over to sleet and rain. That rain snow line pushes and tries to make an approach to the northwest of Augusta before being pushed back down to the south through Sunday night. Stays all snow over northern Maine, and it should stay snow and maybe a little sleet into the mountains. And then this thing ends as snow showers on Monday. So the map is reduced and pushed back, especially here. We've gone 2 to 3 and pushed that all the way into Augusta and Lewiston, 3 to 5 into Bangor, and then 5 to 10 foothills, 10 to 12 in the mountains, because there's one thing Aroostook County needs more of this year. It's snow, and they're going to get another 10 or 12 inches. After that, we cool down for a couple of days. Tuesday, Wednesday look pretty legitimately cold. Thursday and Friday, a rebound. And the storm that we had been watching, if you recall a couple of days ago from mid-next week, has vanished into the thin air of weeniedom. It's not a thing. We're all excited about it in the weather weenie world, and then it just poof, it went away, which happens sometimes. So we actually probably get a pretty long stretch of quiet weather next week. So this storm is kind of what you always say you like, which is the mountains will get theirs.
See?
The coast, not
Every
so
once
much.
in a while, you give me what I want.
Yeah.
That's all I'm asking for.
Not on purpose, though.
Oh, clearly. Yeah.
Unintentional.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, Keith, thanks. We first told you about Nate Snow earlier this year, a young boy who uses his wood carving skills for good. Because of his last name, he makes wooden snowmen, and he's been selling them to raise money to help other kids like him. Snow was adopted, and he wanted to help adopted and foster families of Maine. Today, he donated his earnings from selling the snowmen, totaling $100.
It's amazing to see someone as young as Nate to just go out and be so creative and to actually give back.
The money will help support school-related and summer camp programs through the adoptive and foster families of Maine.
All right, let's check in on what's happening on News Center Maine at 5:30. Of course, continuing coverage of Patriots owner Robert Kraft, charged with 2 counts of soliciting prostitution.
Kraft denies the charges through a spokesperson, but investigators say they've got video of everybody charged in the act. An autopsy is underway on the body of an 83-year-old woman from Owl's Head. State police are continuing to investigate the death, but will not say if foul play is involved.
Those stories and much more local news when we come back.
Yeah, Okay, so yours died too?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're like,
and I'm like, no.
oh wait, now it's working. I refreshed it and then it worked again. We do have a little kicker. I love this. Did you see this from WUSA? Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, Diane. That's a great comment, and thank you for that. And Mike Thurston is absolutely a fantastic man. I had such a great time meeting with him. I've been this is 28 years that I've been working in this business, and if I had to list my top 5 favorite stories of all time, that story is in my top 5. I mean, it meant. I mean, Susan Collins, Senator Collins' reaction was so natural and pure. She didn't know that I was going to show her the video of that game. I just told her I was doing a story about the game and wanted to chat with her, and she's like, of course. So when I showed her that video, she didn't know what was about to happen. Aww. So that was real raw reaction. And Matt Donahue, the best player for Westbrook, you know, who lost that game and still couldn't have more nice things to say about what it meant to Caribou for them and to still be their only championship, you know.
Was Susan Collins in the crowd that night?
She was a sophomore, she ran on the floor and was jumping up and down with the rest of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, great story. So, and yes, Mike Thurston could not have been more gracious with his time.
That's sweet.
And when he made that shot a second time, the both of us were laughing so hard. So that was a pretty cool moment. So that's why we showed it to you again. Even though I shot that story 19 years ago, it still plays today because they haven't won a title since.
So we do have one story before brain drops, and it's one of my favorite stories.
Okay,
recently. Yeah, you're reading it.
Okay.
You probably don't have to say the name. But basically this family, I think in the Washington, D.C. area, because it came from our sister station in Washington, D.C., you know, like the baby age photos that people post with like however many months the child is? Well, they did it with pizza and pizza boxes. So, it's right here. So like, yeah, I thought that was so fun.
That's really cute.
Wait, what is it for the age?
Yeah, like you know, you see like the every so months or whatever posted. They did it by pizza, slices of pizza, and it's all different flavors of pizza, toppings.
You had to cut it more than the average here to get it to
for sure.
So,
Isn't that the cutest?
This is a weird thing.
Yeah.
And it's not because I don't eat enough food, Lee. I like when they cut pizzas into little pieces like that.
I do too.
Because you can make a half decision. Like, all right, I've had like 3, and now I want like a half of one.
Sure. The ratio at the end of crust to cheese is always better.
Have a piece of pizza. All right, any of you out there are pizza lovers?
I hear you in my ear.
Anybody?
I'm a pizza lover, of course.
Okay, we have an amazing monthly milestone picture idea for you. This comes in from one of our viewers, Danny Lee Gianzrea.
That was Dustin. Sup, Dustin.
Basically won the internet. Her son Lorenzo's monthly updates. Every single month, she snaps a new picture of her son on a pizza box and adds one more slice of pizza. When Lorenzo, or Enzo for short, turned 1 on February 10th, he got to be pictured with the entire pizza. And that is cute because you always see little chalkboards, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever.
A great name too.
This is,
I know.
Yeah, this is great.
We didn't do any months at all.
Yeah.
Is that like bad? I think.
No, I mean, you guys, I'm sure you take tons of pictures on your phones and then you just keep them for yourself.
I drew a sketch, like a courtroom sketch of him. I think that's probably fine.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Sufficient.
Exactly.
We doing brain drops?
We are.
All right. I don't know if you guys
here we go.
saw,
High school
but
basketball
we're
brain
seeing
drops.
everything but what we want to see. Okay. So we there was some snow in Vegas, in Arizona,
LA.
Yeah, all kinds of places. Death Valley had a little tiny bit. So what I wanted to talk about really quickly is where this is really unusual and where it isn't all that unusual. So Las Vegas, for example, has had snow 23 times since the 1940s. So it happens on average once out of every 3 years. But in 1949, I thought this was interesting. They had 3 storms in a row. And they had 16 inches of snow in Vegas in 49.
That's a lot.
I wasn't there, but I heard it was quite interesting. The other thing is people forget what Arizona is like. We've talked about Flagstaff before, right, guys, and how they average over 100 inches of snow a year. So there are parts of Arizona where this is not atypical. But for parts of Southern California, it is rare, on the order of every 10 to 15 years. So and it's simple. It's when we warm up a little on this coast, they cool down a little bit on that coast. And so you just need the right little system to get going and bring snow. And here's this guy, if you're a weather weenie, Greg Diamond, I used to work with him. He's a weather producer. He makes graphics, but he has these great stats. Look at some of these snowfall totals. This is one storm. 38.9 inches at Flagstaff. Just to give you an idea,
that's in one storm?
One storm. That's higher than our one storm record in Portland. by about 6 inches,
Wow.
6 or 7 inches. It is still snowing, by the way.
Well,
in
and
that
look right there. So the #1 storm in Arizona, in Flagstaff,
Yeah.
is 84 inches in one storm, or over 8 days.
Yeah. So they get these stalled out storms. So it's a little bit different than here. But when people think Arizona, when people think New Mexico,
Right, you think warm.
Yeah, and people go to Vegas this time of year hoping it's warm. Average high 63, average low 41. So
Wow.
just something to think about if you ever go out and you want to sit by the Luxor pool. Good luck with that. You know.
Pack the extra layers.
You can still gamble if you're into that, but
You could.
it's not my thing.
Not much of a
Too much
gambler.
math.
Yeah.
I'm all about the pizza.
Can we go back to the pizza?
Back to the pizza. All right, News
back
Center
to
Maine
Dustin.
at 5:30 starts right now.